apologize to folks that have been waiting in the wings. I'm glad you're not waiting here in the State House for us to get off the floor. But we're going to start today on H 729. We will not receive the walkthrough of H classified 1 from Eric this morning, but hopefully we can get through some of the H 729, the miscellaneous judiciary procedures bill. Our first person up is Sarah Robinson from the network, and then we're going to hear from Mark Anderson, and hopefully have time for Dan Dickerson and Eric Fitzpatrick. So Sarah, take it away.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. For the record, Sarah Robinson. I'm the Deputy Director at the Vermont Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. And I'm happy to come and speak with you today about H 729 and actually a slightly unexpected silver lining of the pandemic. I know that your committee has heard a lot of testimony about the judiciary and the entire justice system during the pandemic and how many challenges there have been. But there have also been some important lessons learned and some things that we wish to carry forward now as operations are returning to normal. So several years ago, there was a provision that was added to 15 VSA 1106, which is the procedure provision of the after hours relief from abuse order statute. And what that did is it removed the need for a notarized affidavit, which had previously required in-person contact. And this change substituted an affirmation to be taken over the phone by an authorized person, which allows most emergency orders to be filed electronically after hours without an after hours court clerk actually going out and meeting a survivor who is completing a petition. So during the pandemic, the judiciary greatly expanded the ability to conduct hearings remotely. And now, or during the pandemic, most emergency relief from abuse orders were filed electronically to avoid the need to appear in court, even during normal court hours. And as a part of the pandemic-related Administrative Order 49, the Supreme Court included a provision for affirmation of affidavits without the need of a notary. And so when that administrative order expired, it highlighted the fact for certainly for us and also for the judiciary, that it would be beneficial for the judiciary to continue to accept filings during court hours that include an affidavit that do not require the appearance before a notary. So that is really the intent of the language that you have in front of you today. And I did submit some testimony and some proposed changes that we have suggested, which I believe are posted on your webpage. And I'd be happy to walk you through those if that would be helpful.
Can we have copies of those printed out? Sure. Please. Yes, go ahead.
Sure.
I'll look at the webpage right now.
Yep, yeah. They are up on the webpage, and I can screen share.
The 729. Go ahead. Are you going over the emergency relief first?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So I heard in committee discussion last week, there was discussion about the question of what a person authorized to administer the oaths mean. And because this is during court hours and the individuals receiving the petitions would be employees of the judiciary, we're suggesting the employee of the judiciary authorized to administer oaths language. And we would also like to bring the language in 1104 and the language in 1106, make that aligned with the language that is on the RFA petitions themselves regarding false statements. So also on your website is the actual affidavit that survivors complete when they are applying for a emergency relief from abuse order. And we just felt like it was appropriate to have the similar language, the language that is on the affidavit also be reflected directly in the statute.
Any questions on that? Yes, that's okay.
If you have, I was going to say, if you have any other questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. I have also walked these changes by Judge Zone when we were over in the House, and don't want to speak for him, but it is my understanding that they were supportive of these proposed changes.
Right. I can see the affidavit.
Yes, so scrolling all the way down. Here is the language right here, the warning, making false statements is a crime subject to an imprisonment or a fine as provided, and then providing the statutory reference there. So we just felt like it makes sense to ensure that that is the language that carries through both the statute and the forms.
Okay. So Eric, when we're rewriting the bill or doing amendments, can you change the bill with the 3 changes, and then we can vote on them then?
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. Will do.
And thank you. So
Thank you for having me.
Well, we can keep you going and keep talking if you'd like, but I think people are pretty comfortable with that change. We've seen a lot of changes. At some point, I would love to talk with you about just the impacts of the pandemic on the network programs. So hopefully we can schedule that when we get a little break.
That would be great. We would be happy to come in and share with the committee. And it's always good to be with you. And if there's any
for some of our work on the appropriations recommendations.
Yes, absolutely. And we are watching all of that closely. I can share that we are somewhat concerned with the budget that is coming out of the House. There is a $3.2 million deficit that the Center for Crime Victim Services is experiencing, and the House only seeks to restore $2 million of that deficit. So while many elements, go ahead.
If we can arrange with, for next Friday, a week from April Fool's Day, actually. Or no, the week, the 8th, Friday the 8th. We can arrange to have you and Jennifer Holman and some others in on budget issues from some of the agencies. We can do that on Friday the 8th.
We'd be happy to do that, Senator.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Take care.
Sheriff Anderson, regular visitor to this committee. I think it's because you're so close at Brattleboro. Actually, I hear you got a new office coming down in Vernon.
No, it's in Brattleboro.
I thought, oh. Okay.
It's the headquarters of the.
Oh, the headquarters, okay.
Yeah. Not the plant.
Well, I'm glad you're not taking over the nuclear facility. Sheriff, we asked you here a while ago, you and I had a conversation about fees, and we have with us Dan Dickerson from the Joint Fiscal Office, who's done an estimate on the fees, as well as Eric Fitzpatrick. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about the fees that you would like to see into the miscellaneous judiciary bill. Peggy has Dan Dickerson's Joint Fiscal Committee office estimates. Go ahead, Sheriff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, I'm Sheriff Mark Anderson of Windham County. I am the president of the Vermont Sheriff's Association. Specifically, the Vermont Sheriffs are requesting an increase to Title 32 VSA 1591. This is a the statute that requires and establishes the fees collected for the service of civil process being documents from families or the civil court that we are statutorily required to serve. Specifically, we are asking where the current fees are $50, that be increased to $75. The basis for this is that that fee has not been increased since 2007. Or roughly 15 years. And with the increases in inflation, as well as cost of living since 2007, in short, the cost of mail to deliver the mail has gone up, but the cost to pay for it has not. We are also requesting under 20 VSA 2062, that the fee that we collect for fingerprinting people regionally increased from $25 to $35. That has not increased since 2009 in a similar logic. These fees pay for the staff as well as the logistics, resources, and supplies to conduct these services locally. We have seen increases in retirement, increases in healthcare, increases in wages, increases simply to retain staff who can be recruited away by other agencies. So I can certainly speak more, but I think this is a fairly straightforward request.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm just wondering, I know that the fee bill hasn't gone through for a number of years. Are these things that normally go through the fee bill, or are they done by themselves?
I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe Dan Dickerson can answer that one, but I did speak with the chair of the finance committee and let her know that to expect some fees. I spoke to her about the sheriff's fees specifically, but there was also another section of this bill that required the House of Ways and Means to look at the bill. So I suspect it's going there anyway.
Okay.
But I don't know, when the sheriff approached me and explained it's been 15 years, I guess, I don't remember the last one going through this committee or what committee, but.
I was just wondering if, I know there have been frustrations and complaints that the governor isn't allowing the fee bill to go forward. And I was wondering if what this represents would start to be done in other committees as people get strapped for cash.
Yeah, well, you're gonna hear that from not that they're relying on fees as much, but the Center for Crime Victim Services, we talked to them next Friday, the surcharges and fine, and the amount of money they're getting from fines and surcharges is gonna weigh down. That Senator White.
This might muddy the water a little bit, but when sheriffs serve, they retain 85% of it and the state gets 15%. When constables serve, they keep the whole amount. They don't, none of that goes back to the state. So I never have understood why there's that discrepancy. And I would like to,
Fix it?
I'd like to fix it so that if constables are serving, they keep 85%, 15% goes to
Frankly,
the
I had
state.
no idea that constables serve.
Mhm.
I mean, serve, do service.
Yeah,
I know they can serve. I'm fine with that. Eric, did you get that?
Yes, I did. I actually, similar to you, Senator Sears, I never knew about that distinction, but I can certainly, there must be a statutory basis for it, I assume. But
Yeah.
I can certainly look into it.
yep. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any questions for Sheriff Anderson? Well, that was brief. I hope we didn't keep you, at least you were back in Brattleboro and not on the road up here for this meeting. It's another advantage of Zoom meetings, by the way, which I strongly encourage no matter what happens in the future, particularly for those witnesses who live miles and miles away from Montpelier that we continue this hybrid system.
Oh, for witnesses, definitely.
Yes, for
Yeah,
witnesses.
definitely.
I think to ask somebody to drive here for 10 minutes with the committee from Brattleboro or Bennington or even Newport or even Burlington is when it can be done just as effectively.
Senator Sears, I will echo my appreciation for the technology that allowed me to briefly speak today and return to my duties.
Well, we will have follow-up conversations on the other issue of regarding the sheriffs and the transports. As that moves forward, but I think, that is also, we'll be working with you and other members of the association in the appropriations committee on that one. So, all right, thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We
Thank
want to
you.
hang around if other questions come up after we talk with Dan Dickerson, who's our next witness, who happens to be here in the building. Dan? Eric is on too. So.
Good morning, committee. Thank you for having me. Dan Dickerson from Joint Fiscal. You all have in front of you the sheet that I put together with these fees. But if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I'd like to address Senator Baruth's question about fee reporting. So per statute, the executive branch is directed to submit a fee report on certain areas of state government every year. And so the intent is that every 3 years, all of state government is covered within one of those 3 reports. So this year was actually the year that the areas of government that pertain to law enforcement and protection of personal property would have been up. So the report came out, but there wasn't a fee increase proposal along with that. And so I can send the committee the report with all of the fees within the area of protection, but there wasn't a proposal to increase fees that went along.
So it was just to level, keep them level.
Correct. And so next year it would be, I think it's sort of the catch-all category, and then the following year it would be natural resources and human services. And so those reports go to the Finance and the Ways and Means Committee. But like I said, I can make the report for this year available to you, since a lot of those agencies sort of fall under your purview, if you're interested.
Senator White.
Do you know where municipalities fall? Because we did put them on a rotation also, but I don't know the town clerk's fees and stuff. I don't know where.
I believe they are directed to report a statute. I think they submitted one either last year or this year. I just saw it not too long ago,
Okay.
But I can't remember what year. It was relatively recent. I think it might have been this year.
Okay.
And then the judiciary is meant to report every 3 years as well. And I think they would put up in 2020. So I think next year they'll be up. So moving on to this sheet, I've broken this up into 2 categories. The first is the 32 VSA 1591 service of civil process fees. Before I go into this, I do want to note that under this 1591, there are some other fees that at this time aren't proposed to change. I guess the preliminary word is that this current $50 fee is really the driver in this category. So my assumption at this point with these revenues is that they're really all from the $50 fee and they aren't from the other fees. If I find out differently, then this might change the numbers. And so I think, as you've heard, sheriffs retain 85% of these fees, and then the remaining 15% goes to the state and are deposited in the general fund. I've seen 2 proposals for the fee changes. I think in I don't know, it was 504, 507, it was to change it to 65, but then in Sheriff Anderson's email, I saw it was 75. So I just gave both. And so you'll see, at least at the state level, revenues in 2020 were about 111, and they've gone down the past few years. They're trending to probably the 70,000-ish range for FY22. I just grabbed what they are as of March 25th. So my assumption for 23 is under current law, the state would collect about 75,000, the sheriffs would be about 425. And then if you increase to 65, you'd go from, I guess, a $500,000 total to 650. And if you go to 75, it would be 750,000. And then on the other fee, this is for fingerprinting under 20 VSA 2062. At this time, I only have the state revenues for this fee. But it's $25, and the revenues that the state collects go to the fingerprint fee special fund to support the Vermont Crime Information Center. There is another fingerprint fee in statute under whatever title education falls under for if you want to be a teacher, you get fingerprinted, and that also goes to that fund. But the revenues that I've captured only for this particular statutory fee.
Do the revenues for fingerprinting, the last time I had to get fingerprinted, my wife and I had to go down to the sheriff's office in Bennington, get fingerprinted to be foster parents, and we had to pay that.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little concerned about who pays for fingerprinting. And I don't, that, I have no service for fingerprinting today. But,
I think generally foster parents get reimbursed.
well, we did,
Yeah, because
maybe we didn't know.
maybe didn't know, no, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I know that you go down to the sheriff's office and you can get fingerprinted in our county also. So what is the state? You have a state like 173,000 for 2020. Where do those revenues come from? Is that going to a state lab or to the barracks, or? Because there's no split, is there, with the fingerprinting between state and municipality and county?
There's not a split. If a county collects, then they retain the funds. They don't
Right.
flow through the state at all. I would imagine most of the state revenues would be from, I guess, the state police. Maybe, I don't know how the process plays out, but if the state police are booking people and fingerprinting people, then that could be.
Eric or Mark?
Martin, no.
Thank you. So fingerprinting fees are captured for civilian programs specifically. So Senator Sears, you mentioned adoption. Other things can be education, licensing, nurse licensing, or medical licensing, truck drivers for their CDLs, international travel. There's a variety of reasons that are unrelated to the criminal justice system that require fingerprinting. And so those fees are generally paid by professional organizations. In terms of the state, such as fostering, there may be reimbursements through DCF that are captured for individual parents. Any agency can step up to identify themselves as a identification center. And so these fees are to handle these civilian purposes. Most law enforcement agencies separately capture fingerprints for the criminal justice system. There's no cost associated with that. So this is just for things people identify a desire to pursue. And so I would assume the state fees are just simply state facilities that have identified themselves as a identification center.
Oh, so any state agency or department could set up their own fingerprinting, and then that's where that money comes from, I see.
Correct.
Do you have any idea how much sheriffs generally make in the year fingerprinting fees?
I can speak to my county. It's roughly, I think, $10,000 to $15,000. And most of that pays for a part-time person to perform the fingerprinting as well as the replacement of the equipment.
That's not a huge money maker.
No, and one issue we faced, we had to replace our fingerprint machine. Those range anywhere from $20,000 upwards to $80,000. So the equipment's incredibly expensive, and as you know from other conversations, personnel.
You're the only place in Wyndham County that someone can go.
Currently, yeah.
Civilian. And I think the same is true in Bennington County, so
I believe you are 100% correct. I think there's, I'm guessing, and it might be aged, but I believe there's 15 identification centers around the state. Windsor County, I believe, has one in Springfield at the police department, as well as in Hartford at the police department. But for the most part, it's usually the sheriffs with a couple one-offs.
I think Rutland Police do it also.
yeah, it may be that for other agencies, but I think in general it's the sheriffs. Okay. Any concerns or questions about this part? Senator Bruce?
I'm back to the same point of wondering if we should have somebody from the administration come in or testify on this, because if they submitted the report with a recommendation that nothing be raised, it seems that they're holding to this idea that they need to, flatten the fees across a 5, 6, 7 year period. And I would be interested to know what is their response to, for instance, law enforcement not having the money that it needs. So in the one hand, I think we should see whether the governor and the administration are amenable to these raises, but also I think they should have to answer for across the board refusal to raise fees.
Good. I don't know. My guess, and Dan, if you have a different idea, Adam Gresham is probably the first.
Yeah, I think if departments and agencies have fee requests, they get funneled through finance management and the agency of administration. So you would probably be a good first contact.
Why don't we, Peggy, if you contact Adam Gresham over at Finance and Management, and if he has somebody else he'd like to send here next week, we can. I'm in no rush. I want to hold this bill as long as I can.
Yeah.
Just in case something else comes up. I've already got one issue that I might want to raise in this bill.
This on Friday or?
Next Friday's fine, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, while I'm thinking of it, the issue of, maybe Sheriff Anderson knows too, has nothing to do with fees, but the police commission in Bennington that they're trying to establish believes that the law doesn't allow them to do investigations into criminal matters, the police commission.
Into criminal matters?
Yeah, investigation into the behavior of a certain police officer. Let's say there's a complaint about police officer A or B, and you have a civil commission. My understanding is Burlington does it, but that's probably against state law.
Mark, do you know, he is co-chair of the Criminal Justice Council, so might know.
I'm not sure that I am the definitive expert on the answer. I would suspect that the city of Burlington has captured in their charter the creation of their commission. And maybe it's a difference that Bennington's charter doesn't capture the existence of this new commission, whereas Burlington's does. In terms of investigations for wrongdoing of a police officer, and Senator White knows about what we call Act 56, but this was from a few years ago. It's professional regulation of police. The Vermont Criminal Justice Council is the statewide entity responsible for investigating and effectively adjudicating against a law enforcement officer certification. And so how municipalities will handle the oversight of their department is separate from that process, but certainly supportive of either separate independent oversight bodies within the community doing the work, or the police department itself.
Eric, could we research that? That's the basic issue I did write you about a few last week.
It might also depend on how the commission or the committee or whatever it is, whatever it's called, is set up. How,
Well, their legal counsel, they were trying to set it up similar to Burlington's, and the Bennington town's legal counsel suggested that it was against state law for them to, it's not investigate a crime, it's investigate the behavior of a certain officer who works for the Bennington Police Department, where there's been a complaint made to the commission.
yeah, I'm not so sure.
Right, so I did, yeah, I did, that's about right. I think their attorney advised them that the statute that provided for civilian review did not allow them to establish an independent review board to do it. In other words, that the municipality could do it, but that it didn't provide them the ability to delegate that authority to an independent commission. Now, as Sheriff Anderson said, I'm not sure what the situation is in Burlington. It could be that there's a charter, something specific to the charter in Burlington that allows them to do it. But in any event, I did ask Tucker to look into this. So I'll let you know when I hear back from him as well.
Thank you, Eric. Are there
Yeah,
any
sure.
other issues that people know of that might go into a miscellaneous judiciary? Let them come up.
I just got a whole bunch of bills today. You want to add some of them?
No,
Okay.
I want to add a couple of the House bills into this. Now, sometimes they seem like, well, still.
Well, let me think about that. There might be some things, actually.
There seem to be some of the bills that are rather, that are more miscellaneous than they are. Anyway, are there any other questions or comments? Well, good. I'm glad we at least got through that part of the agenda today. And we will talk about H 551 at a different date. Actually, this is that's an H 551 is an interesting bill, though.
What is that one? Oh,
That's
that's
for
one.
racial and religious restrictive covenants and deeds, and evidently one of our Supreme Court justices.
Oh, it did have one, but that's been corrected.
Yeah, I know,
What
but
happened?
this bans
Religious things, banning certain religious people.
covenants, you know, that in a
From like
neighborhood.
condos or something.
Yeah, there, it was like summer camps, summer groups, you know, that's
Yeah.
had this, there's a lot of them around, but I thought we addressed this some years ago.
Well, we're gonna take this up next week, or sometime in the near future.
Eric, I thought we had addressed it.